Hey everyone, in this video I'll show you how to replace the front crank seal on a Ford Transit. This Transit has a leaking seal and we'll go to the front and I'll show you what it looks like when So now we're under the Transit and you can see here that's the pulley and that's where it's all been leaking. It's been leaking for some time, as you can see. There's build up over there. In order to get to that crank pulley there, what we need to do is remove that fan and remove this fan shroud. This fan shroud is just clipped in here and it's clipped in there, and there's two bolts, one up there and one on the side up there. So we have to start by taking this belt off, taking the fan off, and then taking the plastic shroud off. Looking at it from the top, you have to remove the valve over there, and we'll have clear access to the bottom crank pulley. Special tools are required to lock the crank pulley and to remove the crank seal. I'll leave the links in the description. Pay attention to how this serpentine belt goes around all the tensioners and how it goes around the pulley. Those are the bolts we need to open to remove the viscous fan. That one there, there's another one there, and there's another one at the bottom. I mean, alternatively you can just remove the fan itself from there, the nut, but I personally find it easier just to remove those three bolts and take off the whole viscous coupling and the fan. So we have to remove the belt. In order to remove the belt, we have to take off the engine cover here at the top. It's held in by T40 torque screws here, there, and here. So when you're taking off the tension of the belt, you can go ahead and release it from this side. Like I said earlier, take note on how the belt is positioned. It wraps around the crank pulley like so, and it comes around the viscous fan. Once you take the belt off, you can release the tension. Now you can see those are the three bolts I like to take out. That one, that one, that one, and just that removes the viscous fan. It's a lot easier than trying to fluff about trying to remove that big nut there for the actual fan. Now that we removed the viscous fan from the mount, we'll go ahead now and remove the shroud with those two bolts there and there, and these two off this valve here. Once you remove the fan shroud and the viscous fan, now you can see you have clear access to the pulley and the 3 bolts holding it on. So as you saw, we got the pulley off from the crankshaft. So I didn't have the specific Ford crank locking tool. So what I did was I used 3 power bars. So 2 of them were used to lock each individual bolt into the pulley. So if you imagine the 3 bolts here, this one was here, this one was here, and I used those 2 and I just re-held it. So those 2 bolts were holding the pulley. Then with the other power bar, just went around, opened this. So when that bolt was open, then it was switched. So that one went there, this one got open, and so on and so forth. You get the idea. So that's a good little trick. If you don't have the proper locking tool, that's what you can use to open the crankshaft. So yeah, as you can see, that's where it was leaking. Make sure to clean this area well before taking out that pulley. You don't want dirt going into your crankshaft. So that's what the old seal was. You can see where it was leaking from internally. So this tool is quite important. It's just 3 bolts. You can make a similar one as well. The new seal compared to the old seal. Notice that the new seal also got the installation tool. Make sure you never remove that. That will assist installation of the inner seal. It's crucial that this is in place on the crankshaft. So this is how it sits. That seal, that plastic guide ring there, is what allows the seal to push on perfectly. Make sure you clean up this whole area well, clean up the crankshaft, clean up any oil, and also check what type of seal you'll be using. if it's a PTFE or if it's just a standard rubber type seal. Each one has its own specific installation instructions. For example, the PTFE seal I'm using, when installed, you have to leave the vehicle off for 4 hours for the seal to set to the crankshaft, and there should be no lubrication or any grease or anything on the crank. It should be clean. So check your manufacturer spec on the particular seal you get. When you're finished installing the crankshaft seal, you can go ahead and install your new crank bolts. I'll put up the torque specs now so you can see what to torque it down to. It's crucial that you install new bolts because they are stretch type bolts and everything is reverse self removal. So once that's done, you can go ahead and install your crank pulley, install your belt. Then you can go ahead and put your viscous fan and your fan shroud back in. So now we're doing stage 1 torquing, which is 45 Newton meters. So you want to go all around and torque all 3 of the bolts to 45 Newton meters, and then it goes to 120. So you might have seen that tool there. I'll show you that afterwards. It's a custom tool we made because we were not able to tighten the bolts using the previous method I showed you. So you'll need the tool. I'll leave a link in the description. Now that all three bolts are torqued to 45 Newton meters, which is stage 1. Now we have to go 120 degrees on each bolt, which is stage 2. So what I like to do is, just using one of these marker pins, I like to mark each bolt. So mark it at 0 degrees here, 90 is here, and 120 is approximately here. So do that for each bolt, and then you can tighten the bolts up to 120 degrees. You can also use an angular gauge, but this is the way I do it. So now the job is all finished. The belt is installed, everything is back together. The fan was quite difficult using the method I showed you, but it is possible. So you just have to slot the viscous fan in first from the top, and then from the bottom you put this fan shroud, and you can put the two back together. This was the custom tool we had to make in order to hold the harmonic balancer. As you probably saw in the earlier clip, a lot of torque was needed to go from the first stage. First stage was 45 Newton meters. That was fine, but to go 120 degrees, that's a lot of torque, so this tool was needed. The factory tool is not available in most places, but in UK and on Amazon you can get it, so I'll leave the link in the description. But using this tool, we'll just show you what we did and how we locked the crank. So this tool was custom made with a couple of high tensile bolts and some steel tubing. Everything was welded in, and we added gussets for the extra strength. You could do the same thing if you wanted, but in order to make this tool we actually had to take off the pulley so that we'd have a template. Okay, so we'll show you now. So you'll need an additional helper. They will lock the pulley using the tool from the bottom. So they'll go from underneath of the vehicle, and you will use your bar here, and as I showed you earlier, you'll just mark each one of the bolts so you know exactly where 0 is, 90, and then you go up to 120. So in that fashion there, you lock the harmonic balancer. So the tool locks it to the bottom, to the ground, and then you use your power bar, and then you just turn it from the top. So you might be wondering now, we've already put the fan shroud and the viscous fan back in, so that's why we can't really show you on the vehicle, because you couldn't get the camera angle perfect when we were tightening it. So that sort of a position, you will have to hold the harmonic balancer in underneath the vehicle. It was on ramps before, we just took it off, so it's just for anyone else's reference. And when you're all done, don't forget to put your engine cover back on, and you're good to go. I hope this video was of some help to you. If it was, please like and subscribe. Thanks for watching, everyone. See ya.